think about this idea about I really need to clean up my books in the next 3 to 5 years so that I have a really nice history that's presentable, that's going to give that buyer ultimate confidence that what they see is what they're getting. That's going to build value for you. That's going to give you a nice exit and one that you can take to the bank.
Hard Hat the CEO time. Yes, it's Chris G here, and we're back going to talk about some things to help you become a CEO. And today we're going to talk about the exit strategy. And the point being is, if you ever start a business, the first thing you need to do is decide how you're going to get out or pass it on or whatever it's going to be, but you need to have a plan. And to help me figure that out, and if you haven't done it already, is Peter Mohr, all the way from Ontario. And Peter's the host of Business Owner Breakthrough podcast. Check it out, and we'll put a link to that in the bottom later. But welcome, Peter. How are you doing?
I am awesome, and thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here with you, and of course, with your listeners today. I think it's going to be a good chat.
Pete, I go back and forth, but you go by Pete.
Pete,
Mohr.
yeah.
All right, that's fine. I'm reading one place and looking at another. It's like, I'm confused.
All good.
It's all good. It's all good. So, tell us about yourself before we get going.
So, it's interesting as we're recording this early in September. I look back and I started my first business, and it was a contracting business back in September after Labor Day weekend of 1994. Time flies. Time flies, man. I tell you, it's amazing when you think of it. I was 23 years old, and I bought a franchise, and the franchise, it's what I could afford. I had $10,000 in my pocket, and the franchise cost me $10,000. And so, at 23 years old, I just finished university and kind of had saved my money, paid off my education, and worked all my way through with little side hustles and stuff like that. And I said, okay, well, this is back in the day, and Chris, you probably remember it, when everything was in Entrepreneur magazine, or there was a couple of business magazines that you would pick up and look through to see what the new opportunities were and all that kind of stuff.
Fortune 500.
You bet.
The Forbes was a good one too.
Right. So I'm flipping through there, and I see this one. I mean, I looked at a few, but I saw this one, and it was called Surface Doctor. And I'm like, Surface Doctor, that's interesting. And so I went down to Atlanta for Discovery Day and kind of found out a little bit more about it. And what we did was we refinished bathtubs, we refinished tile, we refinished avocado green, refrigerators to white. We sprayed oak cabinetry to white. We did all sorts of refinishing as opposed to ripping out and remodeling. And started off, like I said, 23 years old, 1994. I was franchise number 20. They sold several hundred of them. It was sold 3 times in 5 years, the master franchisor, and it was a disaster of a franchise, as you could expect for something that was low cost. And most of the franchisees failed miserably. And I'm proud to say that 31 years later, that business still goes. I don't own it anymore. A year ago at this time, the fellow that owns it basically called me up and he said, Pete, you owned it for 15 years. I've owned it for 15 years. It served us both well. And so I'm proud to say that the legacy still carries on. They're still refinishing tubs. They do about 1,000 a year in Ottawa, which is where we were located. But built that business up, served, multi-truck operation, several guys out on the road doing a couple bathtubs a day, or, we did a lot of tubs, but we did other stuff, as I mentioned too. Sure. And so we had that for about 15 years and I sold it. So I was ready to exit, getting back to our exit ready conversation.
Yes.
I went back to school at that time. I had owned another business too, which was a cleaning franchise that we 10x'd. We bought it at 30 clients, sold it at 300 clients, sold this business at the same time too. And I was looking for my next sort of opportunity. And for the last 15 years, I've been selling shoes. So I'm in the shoe business after being in service for the first 15 years. But when we look at some of this stuff, I mean, being exit ready doesn't mean you're at the end of your career.
It's just a strategy or a plan for something else, right?
That's it. And, it might be like I was 39 when, 38 when I got out of that first business 15 years after I owned it. And I was exit ready for that particular business, right? And so most people think in their head that, when I'm thinking about an exit plan, it's retirement. And if I'm 20 years old or 30 years old, I'm not ready to retire for another 30 years. So I don't even need to think about that. It's so far from the truth, because I'll tell you what, we call it in the exit planning industry, because I'm a certified exit planner, and we call it the 5 Ds. And for I know most of your listeners, Chris, are business owners. And so you probably know someone, I'm talking to you, the listener, you probably know someone that has died prematurely. You might also know someone who had a divorce, and that divorce caused the failure of their business, because for whatever reason they had to split all the assets and the business didn't survive, or maybe had to be sold, or whatever the case is. It's not what it once was. Maybe it's distress. Think about COVID, think about tariffs, think about all the different things that you don't have control over. My last call was with a fellow that runs a business in a downtown, and the subway is coming through his block, which he has no control over. He's been in the location for 10 years, but his block is going to be closed for 3 years. Like, that's out of his control. You can't plan for that sort of stuff, but you still need to be exit ready. Yep. And so these kind of things, partnership disagreements, another big one,
Disagreements, yeah, I can see that.
Come on, it's a business divorce, is what it is, right?
Been there, done that, yeah.
Right, and a lot of these people have, and they know people that have, yet they still aren't exit ready if it happens to them. Oh, it'll never happen to me, but we know all these other people that it's happened to. So why couldn't it, and why wouldn't it happen to you? Here's the other one, which is disability, which does happen in construction industry.
Mm-hmm.
You fall off the roof, you broke your hip, you're out for 4 months. You have a car accident, or the excavator rolls over in a ditch, and something happens, and you're incapacitated for 6 months. Whatever the case is, it happens. And if it happens, is it going to cause you to have to exit your business? Are you prepared for that to happen in your business today? Have you prepared for it in the future? Do you have the different things in alignment? And I'm talking about not only insurance and stuff like that, which you should have, but I'm talking about process. I'm talking about people in place. I'm talking about the different things that it's going to take for your business to survive without you being at the helm tomorrow, if that happens and is needed. That's being exit ready. And also, when you're exit ready, if your business is exit ready, it's at its most profit. It's at its best chance for you to make the most amount of profit. It's also at its best chance for you to have the most amount of freedom. All three of those things add up to having a good, valuable business that's going to serve you well today and when you're ready to exit.
2019 almost died, and I was not exit ready. My business was not. I was ready to go, but my company was not. Left my family in distress for about a good month, and nobody knew what to do or anything like that. Now today, I've made a lot of changes. That's why I started the podcast. Started my business of consulting. It's just helping, like you said, just helping people get ready for the time. And it wasn't not that I go again. I want the company to run without me, mainly for freedom, but even for your people that work for you. If you go, their livelihood goes, unless somebody wants to step up. But if you plan that, and we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. I have a question for you. So I'm guessing when you started your franchise, you weren't thinking about exit strategy at that point, right?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I'm 23. I was just engaged, just moved in with my now wife of 30 years. But we had moved in together, started this business. I wasn't thinking about exit at all at the time, and it's really interesting. But I have exited that business. And
at what point did you think that? Was it like in 10 years in? It's like, man, I'm gonna make a 5-year plan. I don't just throwing out ideas, but what do you think, or what A make you think of it, and then B, I guess, what motivates you to get there?
Yeah. Well, in my particular case, I got sensitized to the chemical that we used. Gotcha. And which happens a lot in the spray industry. You find it a lot with guys that are spraying in the automotive industry and stuff like that too. I personally got sensitized. Now, I wasn't on the back of a spray gun very much. I mean, I got it going, I got it up and running, and then I got the guys going. part of our, and had multiple trucks on the road. So I was managing, and I owned another business at the same time. So I was kind of splitting my time. But every day when I walked into the shop where all of our stuff was, I could hardly stand being in the shop anymore because I was getting migraines and headaches and a variety of different things because I was sensitized to the product. So
you were the disability almost.
Right. Yeah. And, I mean, I could have done it longer. I was, like I said, I pulled myself off the equipment probably several years before that. With except for dire needs, when something, when it hits the fan, you got to go. You're still a business owner, right?
That's right. It's gonna happen.
We all got to do it, but at the same time, for the most part, I was off, but I knew that I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. I knew.
Sure.
So that's kind of when it really hit me that I'm going to have to start looking at what I'm going to do here. And I ended up going back, taking my executive MBA. Thought I'd go into big business for a while, but that was 2007. And the crash happened. A lot of different stuff happened. I ended up working for my major project with my executive MBA was with a company called Sunbelt Business Brokers, which is like a Royal LePage of businesses, essentially. So you go to a broker to sell your house, but Sunbelt Business Broker is one of those ones that you go to sell your business. So I ended up becoming, I did this major project for the guy that owned the master franchise for Sunbelt Business Brokers in Canada. And he said, Pete, why don't you come and work for me? Like, I'm exiting this business and maybe you want to actually own this one. And I was like, this looks like a pretty interesting opportunity. And so I went to work. I became a licensed broker. I went to work selling, buying and helping people buy and sell businesses and prepping them up for sale at the time. And I quickly realized within a year or so that the owner of Sunbelt Business Brokers at the time really wasn't ready to exit himself, even though he said he was ready to exit, and that my sort of entry into potentially taking this thing over and buying was going to be very far off, not very soon. So I ended up pitching the business that we currently own, a shoe store, to someone else. And they said, no way in hell am I going to move to some little small town in southwestern Ontario and sell shoes. So we found them another business that was good. And we are small town people. I used to commute into Ottawa all the time. And I said to my wife, we should look at this business. So we made the move, and we've been doing that ever since. And so, but that business for the most part is exit ready. I mean, we have a couple of shoe stores, and I am working now more than I ever have in the last 5 or 6 years than I ever have, because we're short staffed. I have 2 people off on maternity leave and some stuff going on. Like I said, in business, you got to dig in when you got to dig in.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, they still are exit ready. Our process is there. Our people are there. We've got everything laid out. It's in a good form, which allows me to do the coaching that I do. And I probably spend more than half my time these days working with other business owners and helping them get their business at this point to where, and for a variety of different reasons, they're looking at this. Some do want to retire. Some want to take this money and use it as a nest egg for the next venture or the next thing that they want to do. But, kind of getting into what I came up with a couple of different frameworks, I guess, Chris, that I'm hoping we might be able to go through to get people in the headspace of a few of the things they might want to look at.
That's where we're going next.
Yeah.
So let's dive in the rabbit hole. Before we do that, we talk about exit ready. What does it really mean to be exit ready? Well, let's define that and then go into your 3 strategies.
Well, we hit those 5 Ds. We hit those 5 Ds.
Sure
and
did.
I hit those off the bat, and you've lived them. I've lived them. We've seen our friends live them. If you feel that, next week, if something happens to you, let's use the hit by the bus syndrome, where you're going to be out of your business for 3 months and your business is going to survive that. And we all know that there's going to be hiccups. There are going to be hiccups, but is your business going to come out on the other side of that 3 months without you being there? Are people still going to get paid? Are you still going to make your collections? Are the jobs still going to go off? Is stuff going to get ordered? Are your customers and clients going to be happy? Like, if you feel pretty confident that, let's say 80-85% of those questions are answered and that can be done by your process and your people in place, then you probably are exit ready.
Cool. All right. So let's go into the 3 ways you were going to mention.
Yeah. So I think, I wrote a little book, and it's also the name of my podcast, The Business Owner Breakthrough, a few years ago. And a lot of what we talk about over there revolve around this framework. It's called the 6 Ps. The book was 5 Ps, but I've added another one. We'll talk about it because there's just so many Ps. But it all starts with this, right? What's your promise? And the promise is the problem you solve for your clients. And so the money doesn't come unless you're solving a problem, because everybody buys a better life. So, if their deck's falling off the back of their house, the better life is we're going to have, an awesome deck beside the pool. Barbecue is going to be on top. Like, you can paint that picture. And if you can picture that, and you can create that in their mind, and provide your step-by-step procedure of how that happens, time frame, all of the different stuff, create the value equation there so that they see themselves in a better life for the price that you're willing to do it for, then you've earned that work. That's the promise. So a lot of times, people that have been at it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, their promise is still the same as it was back then, yet their competitors have bypassed that. That's a problem for a lot of small businesses today, whereby they haven't updated their promise. And I'll use the painting industry, for example. One of the big ones these days, and I can't think of the name of it right now, it's a franchise, but they'll come in, they paint your entire house in 24 hours. Well, one of the biggest issues that people have is, I don't want my whole house to be uprooted for a week while the guys come through and paint my house. So they've solved this problem where they have it all set up, and they've created the process. They have the people that come into your house and they paint your entire house in 24 hours. So that, what is your promise that's uniquely different? Because if all I am is a house painter, then how am I uniquely different than anyone else other than price? So we need to really hone that promise. And when we hone the promise, then we need to look at the product. So what is the product that we're doing that's going to help, product or service, if you're a service-based business?
That's going to solve the problem.
That's going to solve the problem, right? So we need to make sure that it's in alignment with this promise. And then we need to align the process. So we've got the promise, the product, the process, right? And the process is usually, for a lot of small business owners, in their head. That's a problem. If nobody knows how to, how you do up your quotes, if nobody knows how you order your materials, if no one knows how you pay your team, if no one knows how you, any of that stuff other than you, there's a lot of pieces there that need to be filled up and filled in. And we need to come up with standard operating procedures that are going to be transferable to someone else, not just to you, or else you won't be exit ready. They won't be able to do it if you're not there. That's and right. The whole frame, the lens is, what if I'm not here for a month? What if I'm not here for 3 months? What if I'm not here for 6 months? What if I'm not here permanently? Will this thing still go? And if you think of it, if you're a shareholder in General Electric, are you there every day running General Electric? No. You're doing whatever you're doing every day, but you're still a shareholder in General Electric, and you're going to collect the dividends. So think of it as though you were just a shareholder of your business and everything else was being done without you, and you are just collecting the dividend. That would be exit ready at its maximum amount, right?
That's a perfect example. Yeah, at the most you could be.
Right. And I was saying, if you get 85% there, you're doing so much better than like 90% of the people. So, and we do have to dig back in. I'm digging back in, right now with one of my business. Those are those areas where you're digging back in and you're putting in your time and effort and all that stuff. And with so many small business owners, I see the real issue is that that's every day. That's not just a month here or there, or we're busiest in the summer and I'm going to go hard for 6 months and I'm going to take it a little lighter for 6 months because I know that's the seasonality of our business. That's okay. You know that. But if you're busy every single day and it's like nonstop and you're not sleeping and you're going through all this, like, we got some work to do. We got to work through process. We got to talk about your people, which is the next P. The next P is your people. And your people are your ideal clients, your ideal teammates, and your ideal suppliers. All three of those make up your ideal people. not just one of them, because your ideal clients, we've all been there where we haven't been working for an ideal client. And, we don't want that to happen anymore. Like what's our promotion is another one of the P's. How are we promoting to get more of our ideal clients? How are we promoting to get more of our ideal teammates when we need to add team? How are we promoting to our suppliers that this is the way we do business, and we're looking to align with that kind of supplier so that they can supply us? Let's go back to the 24-hour paint company. If you couldn't get your paint for 5 days, yet you promised your 24-hour paint delivery to somebody 3 days from now, that's a problem. I need a supplier that's going to be able more in stock. Like, we need to be aligning with the right people in all three of these fronts, or else we can't deliver the promise. If we can't deliver the promise, the reputation goes down. We can't get the profit, which is the last P. And we need the profit in order to build the thing and scale and grow and do all the things we want to do, all the ideas that we have in our crazy, entrepreneurial brains. It's like, I got so many ideas, but I can't even look at them until there's money in the bank.
Yep. That's their thoughts.
So as we go through the P's, we've got the promise, and then we have the alignments. So important that the product, the process, the people, and the promotion are aligned to that promise. That's how important that promise is. It's where the bedrock, the foundation of everything, talking in construction terms, is that promise. And then everything's layered in on top. Those are the levels on top, and the roof is the profit. It's like, hey, listen, when all of this stuff's done and the walls are solid and everything's nice and the roof is on, this is a cozy home and I love it. I would like living here. I want to live here. That's exit ready.
Yep.
And I venture to say most of the people listening, there's a few of those areas, whether it's process piece, whether it's a people piece, whether it's a promotion piece, that they know they need to do a little bit of work on. And hopefully this conversation gets them thinking. It's like,
I need to make that. Yeah, you're right. I know.
And you know what? Repetition is the mother of skill. That's why we do these podcasts, right, Chris? It's like we're trying to help them through these things so they can have a better life.
Sometimes I feel like I'm beating the drum on some of these. You like delegate. That's what's the answer? Delegate. And it's like that's how it has to be. And it's part of one of your P's is delegate process.
Yep.
That people, you just can't delegate. You got to delegate to the right people because they ought to be aligned, like I said. And it's.
I have a couple of other little frameworks around that, and one of them is called the 4 A's, and it's assess it, address it, align it, and assign it. So what's the issue? Oh, I don't want to do the ordering anymore. I'm not gonna do all the purchase orders anymore. So let's assess it. Well, how much of this time is it going to take? Well, it takes me about 3 hours a week to do the purchase orders for the week. Okay, so I'm going to get 3 hours back, which over the course of the year is 150 hours, which over the course of the year is 3 weeks or so of your time back if I get rid of this. It's not just 3 hours a week, it's 150 hours a year. When we start to take this stuff out and extrapolate it over the course of the years, like, do you really want to do purchasing all the purchase orders and stuff like that for 3 weeks a year? No, I want that time back. Okay, well, then now we have to go, how are we going to do? So we're going to assess it. How is it done? What's the process? Well, the process is all in my head. Well, that's a problem, right? We need to come up with a process, and any process is better than no process. If it's a 4-point thing for now to get it started, then it's 4 points. And as we build it out, it might be 8 or maybe it's 12, depending on the thing, whatever the case is. But you start somewhere. And that's when we're addressing it. Assessing it first, I'm gonna get rid of purchase orders. Now we're addressing it. What do I need to do in order to get rid of it? Now I'm going to align it. Who do I have on my team, or sometimes an outsourced partner, like we talked about in those people, that can help me do this? And this last one is the one that so many small business owners don't do. Assign it. They'll actually give somebody a title, but they don't assign them the accountability. They're still accountable themselves. It's like, oh, you're the guy who does all the purchase orders, but yet before you place an order, you got to let me know everything.
He's micromanaging. Yeah,
that's nothing. I mean, so you got rid of a bit of the detail work and you've moved a bit from detail to dashboard, but you haven't transferred any accountability. So if you want to go away next week to the Caribbean with your family, they're calling you and pinging you and texting you saying, can we place this order? Can we place that order? Is it okay if I place this order? And you're working from a nice remote island, but you're still working.
I'm going to add an A to your list there. All right. You got to be all right with it.
Yeah.
You got to turn it loose. All right, I'm getting it to the right person. You know you've done that decision. And when you're assigning it, or even back to addressing it, you're looking at who and what who's going to get this? Who's going to do it for you?
Yeah.
But you got to turn it loose. You got to have faith.
You know, that's interesting because one of the things that we often hear, and you probably hear it too, is I just don't trust them yet.
Yeah, you got to give authority and another A. Authority, the assignment is authority, really.
Yep.
But you got to be all right with it, because if you don't, it'll eat you up. You'll be laying in bed thinking about, did they do it? I do the same thing sometimes. I'm not perfect.
No, me neither.
But you got to turn it loose, man. You can't. And I've told people before. So when you're assigning it, I would say, listen, I want you to make a decision. And if I don't like that decision, I will tell you about it in the future and explain how I'd like to see it done. But let them, they're going to make a mistake. That's okay, because you didn't do it. You freed up your time, and nobody's like you. Sometimes that's why we don't let go, because nobody's ever going to do it as good as you do. You're right. They're not going to do it as good as you want it done. But that's okay. It got done, didn't it? That's all that matters sometimes.
I've got two little stories around that.
Yeah.
And on the trust side of things, when we hear this word around, oh, I just don't trust them to do it yet. My question usually is, well, is it that you don't trust the person, or is it you don't trust the process? Because if you don't trust the person, then they probably shouldn't be working for you. And if it's a process piece, then it's up to you. If you're trying to release this, then you need to clear up the process, because when you have clear process, confidence comes. And when confidence comes, the decisions are made easily. So, getting back to that sort of authority side of things, when here's another one that a lot of business owners will say, well, at least they say it in their head. Listen, Jim's been here for 10 years. Why doesn't he just do it? Like he knows what to do. Why isn't he just doing it? Right? They're thinking to themselves as Jim comes and says, "Hey, can I spend $1,000 on this new piece of equipment as we go to do our siding job?" And you're thinking to yourself, "Of course, we need it. Like it's a core piece. Like he should know that." My sort of response to that owner when they say, like, these people should know this stuff, my response is this: well, ask them the question, getting back to, are you exit ready? What would you do if I wasn't here today? Well, I just go get it because we need it for the job. Okay, off you go. You've now transferred the authority to them, that next time they need this thing, that they know they can make the decision. They're asking you these questions. Partially, you think because they want to cover their butt, but it's not true. It's because you actually haven't given them the authority to make that decision without you.
Most times, it's like a mirror. And even though you're thinking that stuff, it's a reflection of what you're putting out. He didn't think he had the authority. Or you, being me, I didn't train them properly to do the process. And they have a question. And they're just, they are covering their ass because you done told them, but you didn't teach them right, or they didn't understand it. And a lot of these things happen just because of us. We're the bottleneck.
Right.
And that's what we're doing more of, probably, than just, we're trying to get ourselves out of the way to let our company run the way it should.
So that's the piece about, do you trust the person or the process? Because if the process wasn't right, and if that person didn't know that they had up to $1,500, like, just get it done if you need it on the job site, if they didn't know that and that wasn't clear, and you hadn't talked about that, because on top of the 6 Ps, there's another framework. It's a leadership framework, and it's called the CSA, which is communication, structure, and accountability. If you haven't communicated that structure to them, you can't give them the accountability yet. And you can't expect accountability there. And so there's all sorts of other stuff in behind those ones, but essentially that's the idea. We need, as leaders, we need to always be working on our communication skills. We need to always be working on our structure. We need to always be working on the accountability within our organization. And when we do that, when we're leveling up at those levels, then it gets really powerful when we can help our management team do that too. And I mean, I think that's really gratifying when you see that, you know, you've leveled up and you're helping your managers level up in those coaching moments. Like you said, you know, sometimes they're not going to do it the way you want it. So now it's a coaching moment. And now we're going to go back and talk about how we can, you know, you got 90% of this right, but this last little piece, I probably would have tweaked it. And, you know, those kind of things. And when you see your team doing that too, it gets really kind of interesting. And it's like, wow, this is starting to hum. This is starting to work.
Pete, what I found, you're talking about the 90% and you just get the little 10% left. That 10% can get expressed to your people if you explain to them why. Because they don't understand sometimes, or they don't think like we do. And that's because they're not the business owner. But if you explain why you like it that way, what's the benefit, the time saved, whatever it is, it usually, if it gets across to them, it's like, oh, you see a light go off, and that's something they'll probably never forget. Because
it's awesome.
And the why, I think, is always starting out is important too. Here's why I do it this way.
And that's why, like, from the framework, the 6P framework, you're always going back to those areas because we need to clean up our process because, you know, we've promised in our promise that this is the way we do things, and this isn't happening the way we promised. So we need to align and assign these other pieces of the puzzle in order to make that even better, because there are no perfect processes. Just because we've done something the same way for a long time doesn't mean that there isn't a better way to do it. And when we find that better way to do it, we're cleaning it up, we're making it better. It's a better, more enjoyable, more efficient, more effective way, both for our team and our suppliers and for our client, because they're the ones paying the bill.
I was watching YouTube the other day, and the lady, restaurant, very famous restaurant, I say famous for the area, or I mean, it's obviously enough because it went nationwide on YouTube, but how to build a cheeseburger. Do you just build a cheeseburger a certain way? Well, I would think so, but no. This lady who had bought it in the 1950s and then sold it actually to another lady, and the other lady who bought it, she was teaching her how to do it, and she was just making cheeseburger. She said, no. You got to do this first, and this. And then she had a way of layering her vegetables before she put her beef patty on. And her explanation was on the palate of your tongue, how it all kind of mixes together. Whether it's right or wrong, it was her way. And supposedly it must have been good enough that everybody, so the point was, do it this way because that's why. And it made sense. And she goes, the lady was in the interview, says, I've never made another cheeseburger any other way.
There you go.
Same process. They taught it and explained why.
And I mean, over the years, the burger hasn't been changed, but maybe some of the suppliers were, if it's been around since 1950. But the supplier needs to know what the promise is so they can deliver the product so that the promise is with it. Like, that's the whole idea. Your team needs to know, your suppliers need to know, everybody needs to be in alignment. And this is one of my key words for the year is alignment, because I'm finding a lot of businesses are not in alignment in some of these areas. And so where do you start? You start with an area that you know yourself is out of alignment, and it's okay. We all go through periods of misalignment, and just acknowledging the fact that you're out of alignment in some of these areas is step one, so that you can then go to work on it, just like you'd go to work on the next build or that whatever the case is, whatever you do in your particular job, you know. But we need to work on our business as though it's a job too, sometimes, as the business owner, right? And a lot of times we're trying to put out the fires of the day, and we're not actually dealing with a crumbling structure within our business, and that's a problem.
The perfect spot to start, if you're out there listening, it's like, well, start with things like you don't like to do, but you got to do them. And Pete mentioning the purchase orders. Okay. Figure them out. Figure out, you know, you have to do them. Just figure it out. And you know, you don't like doing, you're doing them now. Do the A alignment stuff and assign it at the end and make sure you're sending it to the right person. That's the best way to start. I talk about in my training, like you talk about tracking your time, like if you're on a diet and putting what's in your mouth. Well, don't track what you're putting in your mouth. Track what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then look at what you're wasting time on, and you shouldn't even touch it anyway. I did this with my business coach. I have a coach too.
Yep. Me too.
And my coach we were talking about stuff, and one of the things was, "What do you do now?" I was, "Well, I do podcasts, but I like podcasts, so I'm not giving that up. As I might give up something else, but that's not going to be given up. So look at those things you're doing, assign the ones you're not doing, that are not enjoying. That'd be the first step. And then at some point, you're going to come down to 3 major things you're working on. That you mentioned being busy. You can be busy or you can be working. So get rid of the busy things and start focusing on the work things that make your business better. Fair enough?
Love it. Yeah, I love it. And
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
We might have already covered it. What do you think the biggest mistake business owners make preparing for the exit strategy?
Yeah. The biggest mistake that I see time and time again, Chris, and it's pretty straightforward, is bad books.
About accounting books?
Yep.
They can't read they don't know where they're at.
I mean, just a variety of things. Like if your books are a mess, that's a problem in so many different ways. And I'll give you a few different ones. Yes. If somebody's ever going to buy your business, they're going to want to see history, not just 6 months history. We're talking your books need to be in good shape for 3 to 5 years, right?
You want to see those taxes and everything.
They are you paying your taxes? Like I talked to somebody earlier today, hadn't paid his taxes in 2 years. It's like this, this stuff has to be done. Your business, that's a red flag. They're not going to take your business. They're not your value just goes down so much if your books aren't in order. They have to be clear. They have to be concise. You can't be running stuff through your business that's, isn't explainable. So if you take if you went to a convention, in Italy for a construction convention in Italy, and you wrote off $30,000, but you went to get the convention for a day, and then you took a cruise and all this other stuff, and you wrote that through your business. If you don't have paperwork to show that, that's taking down the profit of your business by $30,000. And when people talk about multiples, they're trying to, multiply that $30,000 that you're trying to reduce because you didn't want to pay the taxes. That's a problem. You need to be able to explain that so you can get the multiple on that.
I'm going to tell you a story. This has been before I started my construction business, probably 2018, before I got sick. And I had a guy at church, he's a very successful business person, very wealthy. Wanted to sell me I found he was selling the business. I was like, all right, this is something I'm interested in. So I went in, they showed me their books, and I know he's doing well. There's no question about that. But on paper, I finally said, Bruce, I don't have the cash to buy that. So I'm going to go get a loan. But nobody's going to give me a loan based on this paperwork. I can't do it. Maybe somebody else can, but Chris G can't. And that's a perfect example of, I know you're doing well. I can see where you're doing well, but it does not show that for different reasons.
Yep.
And I don't blame him for not wanting to pay taxes. I don't like paying them myself.
No.
But you got to have that paperwork to show, here's what the real cash flow is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cash flow being very important. Here's my cash statement. Here's my income statement. Here's my taxes. Now, all of them show together, but the cash flows in this particular case are the most important ones of how it's coming in, what it can support, because that's what everybody's going to do. Because if you're buying a business, you're going to want to have an account. Somebody look at with you, if you're not really good at it yourself, to look at it and evaluate, are you buying this business for a fair value?
That's right.
And we're talking about the opposite. Pete is, as you're the seller, you got to make sure everything's in line so that when you do get to sell, you find the right buyer who makes sense to them.
Yeah. And I mean, so what's the number one issue? The number one issue is that bad books. And so many small business owners said one of the first things I did when we talk about aligning and assigning accountability is I hired a bookkeeper, because although I have business degrees, I'm really good with numbers, all of that kind of stuff. I don't like to do it.
Yeah.
It
I
drives
love
me
reading income
crazy.
statements.
Yeah. I'll look at income statements and balance sheets all day. Like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff is interesting to me. But to balance my visa, no, I don't like doing that work. So for 30 years, I've had bookkeepers, doing this work for us. And I have the confidence that, and I'm still, I've moved from detail to dashboard. So I'm still at the dashboard level on that. And I'm still making sure that everything's done right. But at the same time, these things, so many small business owners, like I said, we're putting out fires in our business every day. And if you're still accountable for doing the book work, the billing gets left and it's late, and you got overdue accounts and nobody's looking after it and all that kind of stuff. So this is one of the areas for a lot of contractors, a lot of constructors, a lot of service oriented businesses that falls down, and in my opinion, needs to be really strong if you want to exit your business. So if you're thinking about exiting, whether you're exiting at 38 years old, 23 years old, or 70 years old, think about this idea about, I really need to clean up my books in the next 3 to 5 years so that I have a really nice history that's presentable, that's going to give that buyer ultimate confidence that what they see is what they're getting. That's going to build value for you. That's going to give you a nice exit, and one that you can take to the bank.
The best part as we sign off here is that, to the listeners, everybody, even though you and I don't like doing checkbook stuff or balancing stuff, there are people out there who love that type of stuff that we don't like doing.
For sure.
And they don't want to do our stuff.
Nope.
That's great. That's a great team. Everybody has their little seat on the bus and know where they're going. Pete, thank you for today. This has been a very, very good one, actually. We'll put a link down in the show notes. You say you had a book too?
Yeah, it's the same as my podcast, The Business Owner Breakthrough. You can buy it on Amazon. And so it's a short book. Read it in probably 2 hours. So everybody's busy. Business owners are busy. So it's like, I didn't want an encyclopedia. It's just a short little thing going through the 5 Ps. The promotion one that we added in there isn't in that, but the other 5 Ps are. And you can find out a lot more stuff on the podcast. All of them are sort of in detail over there, or at Pete-Mohr.com to get everything else.
Awesome. That stuff will be in the show notes below. Also be a link to me if you want to talk about how to get unbusy in your business and start working on becoming a CEO. hardhatceo.com. Those links will be in the bottom for a free consultation. Pete, thank you again. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you again next week on Hard Hat CEO. Bye-bye.